NxtUp Ballers, welcome back to the NxtUp Ballers Podcast, where we highlight the leaders, visionaries, and culture shifters who are building something bigger than themselves. This is where purpose meets action and legacy is the goal, not just success. Today's guest is someone who is literally engineering impact. Dr. Nathan Leroy Harris is an educator, visionary, and the president of See Brilliance, an organization rooted in helping Black and Latinx youth discover their innate genius. A graduate of Morehouse College and the youngest Black man to earn a Ph.D. in engineering education from The Ohio State University, and is also a part of a 4-generational Buckeye legacy. Dr. Harris isn't just talking to us today about brilliance. He is building systems that cultivate it. Let's get into today's episode. All right, well, hey, welcome to the NxtUp Ballers Podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm fantastic.
Fantastic.
How about you?
I'm really well. I'm excited to have you and excited to share your story with our listeners and watchers today. So we've already heard just a beautiful intro. So I'm excited to dig deep into just the questions and just learn a little bit more about you to see what you can offer to everybody listening today. Sound good?
Ask away.
All right, cool. Okay, so before the PhD, before the title president, before the 5,000 youth reached, who was Nathan growing up?
Nathan was a curious little boy, always just wondering how things worked, tinkering, pressing buttons that said do not push.
Okay, yeah.
Just that little curious boy.
Okay.
Always asking questions, always getting in grown folks' business because it was more interesting to sit at the grown folks' table than it was when little
Because
kids.
what's happening at the kids' table?
Nothing.
Beneath me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what does that look like? How did that, have you always just been curious? Did anything like spark this curiosity, or you just came out the womb like, let me just do all the things I'm not supposed to be doing?
Well, I can't tell you when the genesis of the curiosity started, but I would say that from my earliest recollection, I would say just always wondering how things worked and why things were a certain way and things like that, and always asking questions too. Plus, I think it really comes with not having any other siblings and whatnot in the home too. So it's just like me, myself, and I. And so, just had to make things work.
Okay, so you were only child in home with mom. So mom was like, oh, did she welcome all the questions, or was it just a lot of like, come on now, that's enough?
No, my mom was a teacher.
Okay.
Grandma was a teacher too. And so I think it was just in the nature.
They understood, which is beautiful setup actually for my next question, because you came from a legacy, especially the 4 generations of what I hear, not only teachers, but from Ohio State University, right? So dating back to your great-grandmother, which is powerful. You don't honestly hear that too often, specifically in the Black community, just that legacy that's just kind of paved the way for you to be here today. So growing up with that kind of history, did it feel like pressure? Did it feel like pride? Did it feel like this is something that I absolutely have to do in order to keep this legacy going? How did that show up in your childhood and then when you went to Ohio State University? I'm sorry for all of you Ohio State fans. Let me not disrespect.
They would say add to thee.
Yeah. Oh, goodness gracious. Yes.
But I guess there was a sense of pride, but I think the better word would be there was a sense of belonging. And that was comforting, just knowing this is what came before me. And so this is my responsibility to keep it going. But then too, like if anything, I had something to fall back on. And so being able to have, the presence of my great-grandmother or great-grandparents and grandparents and mom and aunts that all went to Ohio State, it just felt right and whatnot, even though I didn't do the undergrad track. I deviated, but I did go back and do the PhD.
Yeah. So speaking of deviation, you didn't go. So I'm assuming your grandmother's great-grandmother's mother went straight to Ohio State right after high school.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean by deviation? Okay. So let's talk about the deviation, because you went to Morehouse, right? Morehouse man, everyone. Why that path before, instead of just going straight to Ohio State?
My mother surprised me with a trip to Atlanta my sophomore year in high school.
Okay.
And part of that trip, I thought we were just doing Battle of the Bands, Honda's, classic, and the original Georgia Dome and whatnot. But we ended up taking a tour of Morehouse. And honestly, since that first initial step on that campus, I knew something was calling. And just to know of all of the rich heritage, the history that we have seen through life today, originating at the house, it just felt right. But I think the moment that really sealed the deal for me was stepping inside of the Martin Luther King Jr. International Chapel, and they have in their nave all of these portraits and whatnot of various historical figures. And it was upon us not even supposed to be in that room, but the dean had came out and he had spoken, he had talked about my pastor. And, my pastor's a Howard alum.
Okay.
But him being able to make that connection just kind of just sealed the deal that this was the place to be, especially with all the black men that you just saw walking around in suits and just something about it. I just knew it was the right place and the right decision. So I knew where I was going ever since sophomore year. Sure did.
I think that's beautiful. I want to ask you this, and you let me know if this is too personal, but was there some type of closeness that you felt when you went to Morehouse, just kind of understanding that you grew up mostly around women, it sounds like, right? Was there an added sense of I belong here because it was just kind of maybe something you felt as though you may have been missing throughout your childhood?
Something I never really thought of before.
Okay, yeah.
I think at the time, I probably wasn't thinking in that regard, but I will say ever since, I am forever grateful for the brotherhood that I have been a part of. And just to be around different men who are, I would not say like-minded, but because we're all not in a monolithic, narrative.
Right, absolutely.
But black men that come from similar cloths and whatnot that are there to challenge and to grow each other and not to compete, I think it's just truly invaluable simply because of you're not getting that elsewhere. But then, too, I didn't have, a big brother or a little brother at home. And so I think by having that, it really showed me, what masculinity and whatnot could look like. And how it should be modeled, and just how to carry yourself.
You mentioned the just parts of what Morehouse instilled in you, and how from the minute you stepped on the campus and had that interaction with the dean, just kind of how that solidified this change or this decision for you going to Morehouse. But can you speak to maybe anything else that shifted in you, either at that moment or during your matriculation there at Morehouse? Is there anything that you would say, just because a lot of our listeners may not be familiar with HBCUs or just familiar with the pride that it can instill in you, or I say me graduating from an HBCU when I was an undergrad, I grew up there. That is the that's the place that made me an adult. I figured out who I was, not only as Christian, but as a Black woman in America, right? So is there anything that, and it could not be that, that could have already been instilled in you before you went to Morehouse, but is there anything during your time there that shifted you as a person, that clicked for you, that instilled something in you that you just still carry with you to this day?
I think Morehouse was reaffirming as to what my life's purpose and work is. And so I have no doubt in my mind, simply because this is what I was taught growing up, is that I come from a rich heritage, a rich lineage, that's being a child of God. Mm-hmm. And so with that, when it comes to the work in which I do today and pouring back into youth and even to, adults and so forth now, at Morehouse, it was reaffirmed by, my brothers and even Spelman sisters, to where, whenever we would gather and just talk or laugh and things like that, my Spelman sister actually reflected on this for my 21st birthday. She said, "Nathan, whenever I think of you, I think of home." And I've sat with that. And, what does that mean? And I think what that means is the safety, but then the lessons that you get being in home, the protection that you get being in home, the affirmations you get with being home. And so, being poured into at Morehouse, but then also pouring into others and whatnot, has just been something in which I just feel like has just been innately in me. Simply because, I serve an amazing God that has continued to pour into myself and then those around me and my generations before me. So reaffirming would be that word. Reaffirming
that home is where you are is kind of what I'm hearing too, is Morehouse instilled in you that, like, whether you are there physically at the location of Morehouse or as you are doing the work out here in the community, all of that just kind of resides within you, whether that's through God, whether that's how you carry yourself, whether that is understanding your purpose. And I think that's a beautiful reflection that your friend was able to share with you. And it's a compliment. It really, really is. So you finally left home, you graduated from Morehouse, and you decided to go to the Ohio State University. And you became the youngest Black man to earn your Ph.D. in engineering education from the Ohio State, which is crazy, right? Like, it's incredibly historic. And I love that just up until this point, we've just laid the foundation of, like, you have been walking in history, so you were just kind of destined to make something great with your life. But what did that moment represent for you, personally and culturally? What did the moment of being or knowing that you were going to be, and then you became the youngest Black man to earn your Ph.D.?
I think about a driving factor in which my great-grandmother, though she went to Ohio State, she was one paper away from finishing.
Oh, wow.
And the paper that had her removed from the college at the time was called America's So-Called Democracy. So just imagine a piece like that coming out in the early or the late 40s, early 50s at a white institution. And so when completing that doctorate, it was helping to complete what she could not finish.
So good, yeah.
And more importantly, it was an opportunity to show other people that didn't necessarily complete it for the title or whatever so-called prestige that, people deem that it comes from.
Yeah.
But rather, I completed it as just another marker for the work that is yet to be done. And I think oftentimes I look back and I think, should I have done it? And I could have just taken, a good little high-paying role and been able to probably amplify the work I'm doing today. But I saw it as an opportunity to show students that, one, education is important, but then two, within any area of education that you do it, you should seek the highest form of excellence that it calls or beckons for you to do. And so for me, it was completing that Ph.D.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that story, that background story. I think it adds so much color to your journey. Not that it wasn't colorful already, but just an extra light as to why that was so important for you. Because a lot of people do go after higher education and their doctoral degree and things like that for that notoriety, in order just to have that title in front of their name. And I will say, like, that's one thing that I have appreciated about you is you're like, use it or not. Like, it's not, and you live that, right? It's not just something that you just say. Even, I'll let the listeners in on, just before we started this conversation, I asked you how you preferred to be referred to. And you said whatever makes you feel comfortable besides shortening your name, right? And so I think that's really beautiful to not only live authentically in that way, but to also know that there's a story attached to it. It really humanizes your entire experience. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, so let's get into See Brilliance.
All right.
Let's get into entrepreneurship, leadership, legacy, all of that, because after you graduated, you really started to embody what it sounds like all parts of See Brilliance, right? So from younger Nathan tinkering with all the things to wanting to pour back into Black and Latinx folks, and also just like making sure that your legacy within your family is being carried out. You started really building something that's gonna outlive you, which is pretty dope. So let's talk about See Brilliance. Talk about where this idea came from. Talk about give the listeners just a little bit more insight into where See Brilliance started and where it is now.
Yeah. So See Brilliance started in 21, and I tell people that it was an opportunity for me to continue my dissertation work in a field of like a research to practice thing. What really, I think what really pushed me to start it was something my mom always wanted me to do, to be able to create something that's of my own, that wasn't controlled by any type of system or directive of whoever's in control of that system. And so it was me being let go as a youth minister at my home church.
Okay.
And we had a new preacher coming to town.
I was like, what'd you do? Okay, so new preacher.
We had
Okay.
a new preacher coming to town. And, with that, he was just trying to clear house to make way of his agenda, as, any CEO would do. And so instead of being hurt by that, I said, well, the work must continue. And so See Brilliance, it was at the time a project that was being used to continue the ministry work in which, I was already doing, but then really to integrate this parental involvement and STEM framework that I had been, studying and so forth at the university, but then also what initially led me to the university, which was to be able to do work that would open up rooms for Black and brown youth to get into tech and to STEM spaces. So really with that, we started off, very small, just working with just a few kids and whatnot, very intimate and whatnot, to now working with, thousands of youth throughout this city. And it has been a remarkable journey. But then sometimes I sit back and I think, wow. But then I think about, somebody had asked me, what is something that you could pray for? And this was in 2022.
So a year after.
Yeah.
Started, okay.
And my silly self said, pray for increase.
Ooh, you got to be careful what you ask God for.
And with that came the prayer of Jabez.
Oh.
I pray for increase.
Okay.
And as
God
the
said,
songwriter says, increase indeed. Increase. So Ty was screaming increase, and that's what exactly happened. And so I don't think I have, when someone asks me, what could you pray for now? I don't think I've ever said increase again.
I know that's right. There's a couple things I don't pray for. Patience is one of them.
Don't do it, or he will test your patience.
It will. It's just certain things you know not to ask for. But that's beautiful. I was actually listening to something this morning, and the preacher actually said sometimes God withholds blessings from you because you can't, not because you don't deserve it, but because you can't handle the burden that comes with it. And so a lot of times we pray prayers like that. We're like, God, I really want you to bless this business. I really want you to increase. I really want you to, show up in this way. And it's not that we're not deserving. He's just like, actually, there's a lot of burden sometimes that comes with that increase, and I want to ensure that you can carry it, that you're strong enough to carry it. So what a blessing that although you didn't know you weren't ready for that increase, God said you were. And so you found yourself in a situation where you have been experiencing the increase. I think it's so funny because I had never heard of you prior to, I don't know, like December of last year. And then I just started hearing your name all the time. And I was like, who is this Dr. Harris that everybody in the city keeps talking about? And then when I had the privilege of meeting you and us just having a conversation, I said, oh, I get it, right? Like, oh, I understand why you are just very well known and well spoken of, and just how you have carried this organization to where it is now. Just having a note here that reaching over 5,000 youth, that is amazing, right? Like, so just understanding that although you didn't know you were ready, that God knew you were ready, and you've been carrying it so well, because I've never heard anything but great things about you within the community. So hats off to you, because I'm sure it is growth. So talk a little bit about that. So one of the things that I really enjoy having entrepreneurs on the podcast is because I ask them to be honest about it, right? Yeah. Like, it's not always this glamorous, I just, I have the 5,000 youth, or I have all this money in the account, or whatever the case may be with your story. Can you speak a little bit about the entrepreneurship journey? So yes, you're leaving a wonderful legacy behind, and you're helping so many youth. And also, it is a burden. Can you talk about the doubts, the trials, the non-glamorous parts to just ensure that we are keeping a well-rounded view of what's happening?
Yeah, of course, you go through your growing pains. You start off broke. And I don't want to say broke in a negative context, but if you think about a seed, when you plant a seed, in order for it to germinate, it has to break. And then it takes root. And so, with that, I think one thing in which I have prayed for, and I think every time we submit a grant, whenever we get a donation, whatever the case might be, I always say, God, please allow us to be good stewards. So that, because it's in that stewardship that, one, it's the relationship that we have with funding, but then also the responsibility of us using funding or even working with youth responsibly. So that it actually grows and manifests, and our mission is actually going out and accomplished. And so in that, there are times in which you do grow tired, you do grow comfortable because things are, steady and whatnot.
Okay, yeah.
And I think in that comfort might come a little bit of guilt. And it's just like, am I even deserving to, relax or to, just allow the status to be because it's working, or do I have to continue to go climb and climb and climb? And just knowing when to pivot. And, the reality is we live in such a society to where it seems as though we have to compete against each other. And so I've seen organizations that have started to emulate our work and whatnot, which, is perfectly fine, because if it's working and the impact is doing, and guess what? You're just carrying out our mission.
We're just vessels.
Yeah. And so with that, there comes a time and a period to where, one, you're acknowledging the rest that needs to take place. Two, you're realizing that, okay, what's working is working. But then three, what you're wrestling with is what's next. And being able to respond to what that next is. And so one thing I've always said is that I do not plan to be in the position that I'm in when it comes to, the CEO of See Brilliance and things like that long term, simply because I do believe that there are people or persons that can really carry out this work and further amplify it. And I will not be someone that's in some position that's in the way of that, because that's getting in the way of the brilliance that's to be discovered in other you. And so, right now I am thinking about, what is next, and when it's time to, let go, not necessarily let go, but to, pass on that torch is about trusting, trusting that God has given that authority for that to take place.
Yeah. I was at an event yesterday, and there was an older gentleman in the community who said, if you will never be successful if you don't have a successor. And I was like, yes. We should always be planning with the future in mind, right? Like, we should always, and not get in the way of that. I think a lot of things are stopped or never able to reach their full potential because we get in the way, whether that is pride, whether that is, the desire to hold on to, especially when we start these businesses, they're like our children, right? They're something that we feel as though we have to see till the end. And actually a large part of the growth and being able to deliver on what the goal is in fact being able to let other people in and then just kind of let it go. And even, you don't even want to squash your own ability to see what you still have inside of you, right? A lot of times we get so hung up on doing the thing that we have just been doing for a while that we get stuck there, right? We feel as though we have to hold on to that thing for so long that we don't even realize, like, there's still so much on the inside of us that if we don't, remove ourselves from doing the thing that even got us here, then we may never fulfill all the potential that we have on the inside of us, right? So, no, that's good. That's good. Just the art of letting go and having a plan for something that outlives you. So I recently went to your birthday, and your mom got on the mic and she gave a beautiful speech. But in the speech, she said something, and I was like, "Oh, I'm bringing that on the podcast." No, but she said, "Nathan, I've always seen the brilliance in you," and I was like, "Now, has she been saying that ever since he was younger? Or did she say that because of the organization?" So what does See Brilliance even mean to you? Like, is that something that really was instilled in you since you were younger? And, your mom has just been feeding that into you. Like, I see your brilliance. I see your brilliance. Or, did she say that in reference to just the organization, but there was something just maybe that she instilled in you growing up that even birthed the idea to name your organization See Brilliance?
Yeah. So I will say she did not say because of the organization.
Okay.
But they were those affirmative words that she would say to me in the car rides home and things like that, especially, when you're growing up and you're dealing with the pains of being a child and
15.
whatnot.
What is that?
You know,
7 years old.
But being able to speak that love into me. And so, and like I had shared, moments ago that this was something in which she really encouraged me to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that's just what I kind of grew up just hearing, that I am brilliant and things like that. And so when it came to the work in which we're doing today, brilliance is what resides in all of us. God has put brilliance in us. And so that's why, in our mission statement, it says innate brilliance. And so with that, our work that we do as a staff or volunteers is to help discover that and we believe that sometimes it takes a trained eye to be able to see it. And so with that, we are actively trying to dismantle anything that might be in the way of allowing you to see what's already in you. And so that just speaks through everything in which we do. And I think honestly speaks through how I choose to carry myself each and every day. Just really being able to shed light into what's already in you.
Do you feel as though you're leaving a legacy behind right now?
We'll see when I'm dead.
No, that is not how we build legacy. Legacy starts now.
Sure, I thought it was going to be a quick answer.
Nah. Rapid fire questions are happening in just a moment. Until then, I want to relate, sir.
Gotcha. Do I feel as though I'm leaving behind a legacy today? I guess so. I don't think I wake up and I think about, what am I doing to leave behind?
Yeah.
But I do plan each and every day to, like, if this were my last day on earth, what was left behind. And so, I really try to make sure that if it's, the Bible talks about, not allowing the sun to set if there's a disagreement or a discomfort in somebody's life. So I truly, try to live by that and, making sure that, all things are settled and things like that, but then are hopefully left in a better place than how the day might have started.
Right.
And so I think when it comes to the legacy and whatnot that I am either intentionally or unintentionally leaving behind, I think this really goes down to, how is it that I'm showing up each day in someone's life in the most authentic way. Yeah. And, not every day I'm filled with energy and not every day I want to go to work and things like that. And not every day I say the right thing.
What do you mean?
I have a sharp tongue, yes.
Oh, okay.
And so
don't cross you, huh?
No, I didn't say don't cross me, but it knows how to slice and dice. Fruit Ninja.
Okay.
We're not sponsored by Fruit Ninja, but
unless they want to sponsor Fruit.
Okay. Amen. I might download it now, but I do think about those things and how I'm showing up each and every day.
Last question before we head into our quick play rapid fire section.
I was ready.
What is one thing every Black and brown child needs to hear early before the world tries to label them?
I don't want to sound cliche.
See, they're brilliant.
Look, to see your brilliance. Listen, I was like, to see your brilliance, and I think that when initially I was thinking about names of this organization and whatnot. Originally, I thought about naming it I See Brilliance or See Your Brilliance. But what we did was, we just took out the prefix and then your, and then we just said See Brilliance. And so with that, when we talk to people, I see your brilliance, Christian. And then, a kid can look back in the mirror and say, I see brilliance in me. And so I really think that if a young person says that to themselves, each and every day, does not matter what is hurled at them, I'm brilliant. Nothing can stop me. I'm all the way up as, whatever rapper said it. And so I'm an old school person anyway, so I just...
Speaking of old school, I will make sure that you tell everyone how old you are.
Okay.
Okay.
Maybe. But yes. but yeah, so like that is what I would tell a young person. I hope that they tell themselves that.
Yeah. Good. Well, thank you. As soon as I asked the question, I said, "Oh, this could actually be a setup for this to be an easy layup, or maybe you could have came off the fly with something else."
Hey, no, listen.
Okay, so now we are in our quick play segment. This is rapid fire questions, no long answers, it doesn't have to be incredibly thought out, just first thing that comes to your mind.
All right.
All right, you ready? All right, so early mornings or late nights?
Late nights.
Best advice you've ever received?
I'll see you at the top.
Oh, I love that. Okay. Go-to song when you need motivation?
Wow. What type of motivation? like if I need to get in that mood.
Exactly.
I ain't ever scared. It might be that song, but motivation. I come back. I can't. I love music. That is a hard question. I love music.
Okay, well, here's a better one. Who's your go-to hype person?
Go-to hype person?
Yeah. Who hypes you up the most?
I don't know. T.I.
Okay. Actually, I thought you were going to say, I was going to say real person, but person like you knew. So you just go to T.I.
I thought we were still in music.
My best friend. No, this is just T.I. works, so any T.I. song gets you hyped.
When it comes
your
to
mom's going to
my
listen back, it's going to be like,
huh? Like, really? Like,
not me.
Like, no. Either my mom or my brothers.
Okay, okay. Brothers.
My line brothers, so Alpha or even Morehouse.
Morehouse, okay. Because I was like, you did tell the people you didn't have any siblings, so I need you to clarify.
Yes.
Okay. If one book every young leader should read?
The Bible.
Okay, yeah, I agree with that. And tell the people how old you are.
To be continued.
No.
30 years old.
Yes, I told you before this. You had to. People you are inspirational. So I really just want to ensure that people are inspired by you and your story. All right, so we are turning the corner. So every guest that I have on the show must leave our listeners and viewers with a challenge for the week. And this can be anything. But the goal here is to not just receive information, but to actually have action steps behind what they heard today. So if you are going to impart something into our listeners or to our viewers today, what is one challenge you will give them that they can do this week?
This week. What is... for this week, what is one thing that you are currently doing that God has the power to exponentially increase in your life? And what will you do once that's done?
Write it down. You want them to write it down?
They can write it down, live by, put it on the mirror in the bathroom, whatever they want to do. Yeah. But what is that one thing that you're currently doing that if God were to increase it exponentially, what would be the result of that?
And are you ready?
And are you ready? That's it.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Nathan Harris, for sitting down with us on the NxtUp Ballers podcast. It was really a good time getting to know you and just so much wisdom on the inside of you. And I just hope and pray that God continues to expand your territory to the magnitude that you are able to carry it and continue to be brilliant. Thanks so much.
Same to you. Thank you.
I told you all it was going to be a good one. What an amazing conversation. Dr. Nathan Harris reminded us that brilliance isn't something you can earn. It's something you uncover. And when you build systems that help young people see themselves clearly, you don't just change grades, you change generations. To everyone listening, your legacy is not accidental. It's engineered. It's cultivated. It's spoken into existence. Thanks again for tuning into another episode of the NxtUp Ballers podcast, where our guests are built on wisdom, driven by action, and leaving a legacy behind them. You can listen to us wherever you listen to your podcast, and you can also watch us on YouTube. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and we will catch you on the next episode. But until then, go ball out. It's a wrap.
Ballin'!